following is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Top of the key, triple. Richie Saunders, fourth three-pointer of the night. Massive make.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation. Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte with you. BYU basketball, man, what a close to this season. The Cougars are on an 8-game winning streak, and we want to hear from you, Cougar Nation. 801-575-8255. Again, that's 801-575-8255. The phone lines are going to be open over the next hour, so you can weigh in and share your thoughts on this BYU basketball team, or weigh in on the question of the day. What do you think BYU's mindset should be for the Big 12 tournament? And Matt, these are good times for BYU basketball, especially when you're on a long win streak, but then you get a big win over rival Utah.
They start 1-3 in conference play. Who would have guessed they'd be 17th in the country on an 8-game winning streak with road wins at Arizona, Iowa State. Things have changed quickly, and this is the exact type of thing I think every team in the country wants to do, Mitch. Play their best basketball in March, and that's what BYU is doing.
BYU takes down Utah 85-74 to close out the regular season. Let's dive into the takeaways.
Cougar Nation, takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
I'll start things off, Mitch. My first takeaway is that this BYU team won a game that I didn't think they were capable of winning a month ago. There were a couple very interesting stats that favored Utah, and yet Utah never had a lead in the second half, and they never really threatened to win this game after BYU got a double-digit lead with about 17 minutes left to go in the second half. The Utes out-rebounded BYU by 19, and they were plus 12 from the three-point line. And if you would have told me that before the game had started, I would have said there's no way BYU wins this game. Because the last two games BYU had lost, they were out-rebounded by 15. And yet this team has evolved. They can win in so many different ways. The points off turnovers favored BYU. Points in the paint, plus 18 for BYU. Bench points, it was pretty equal, but still plus 2 BYU. It's incredible to me that this team has evolved in such a manner that they can win. In a game where you don't rebound well, we can still win. In a game where we shoot 10% below our season average from three, and we get outscored from that part of the game, we can still win that game too. It's just really impressive. They were able to overcome those things that did not go their way.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for BYU, especially when you consider, where they were against Utah back on January 18th. It's a little bit of a snapshot of how much the team has evolved over these, close to 2 months since BYU lost in the Huntsman Center back in January. I think my first takeaway is Dawson Baker led BYU in scoring. There were 5 guys on BYU that reached double figures on senior night against the Utes, but Dawson Baker off the bench, redshirt junior, 15 points, 4 of 7 from the field. Most notably, I think 3 of 5 from three-point range. It was his first double-digit scoring effort since January 25th, and Coach Kevin Young highlighted Dawson as a guy that he's playing well and maybe deserves more minutes.
We feel like we have a lot of depth in our locker room, so on a given night, we can have different guys step up and lead us in the scoring. Dawson's a guy who probably deserves more minutes, and the one thing that makes me at least feel better knowing that he does deserve more minutes is when he comes in, I try to go to him. I try to call his number as much as I can because he's a guy that can deliver.
What a luxury for Kevin Young, Matt, to have almost every guy he can make the case and say he probably deserves more minutes. It's a nice spot BYU's in right now.
That leads me to my second takeaway, Mitch, which is kind of along the same lines as you. I'm going to go with Mihailo Boskovic. Played 17 minutes, had 11 points, made 4 of his free throws. I thought he was really impactful on both ends of the floor. Kind of cool, too, that his parents were in town to watch the basketball game. But he has really come on, along with Trey Stewart and Dawson Baker, who you noted. The bench production is a real weapon for this team. And even guys of late who have played well, like Dallin Hall, he only had 5 points. He played 24 minutes, 3 assists. Yeah, the scoring wasn't there like it was against Iowa State, but I still felt his impact. And I thought his 3 before the end of the first half was critical. And I also love, too, Mitch, what Kevin Young said about that situation and that late game clock management?
Got to give Chris Burgess a lot of credit for just he's kind of in charge of our late clock management in those 2-for-1 situations. So if you really studied that whole sequence, that was a very good job of Burge having me dialed in on when to shoot, when to call the timeout, what kind of play to draw up. Then we fouled them on purpose so we could then get the last shot. I mean, it was a masterclass by him in having me ready, which I rely on my staff to do that type of stuff. So that was just great all around.
Good stuff from Kevin Young and Chris Burgess, who's been on both sides of this rivalry, having an impact. And the bench play was significant, Mitch. It was between Boscovich and Baker, who you noted, Mitch. I thought they kept the game close in a period where in that first half, Utah really could have surged to maybe a double-digit lead, but Baker and Boscovich were key.
That they were, and BYU closes out the regular season on an 8-game winning streak. And I think my second takeaway from this is just BYU continues to be this pick-your-poison team. It's been kind of a theme in recent weeks from Kevin Young, but they truly can beat you in a variety of ways. It hasn't been a set blueprint every single game how BYU is winning. And I think that's why there's so much confidence in Cougar Nation right now about this team. They can win the high-scoring, fast-paced, high-tempo game like they did at Arizona. They can win a game at Iowa State where everything's going sideways offensively for the first 5 minutes. They have almost 30 turnovers and still win. They win a game against Utah, slow start, rivalry, high emotion, senior night, all the cliches, and they still come away with a victory, a sound victory where they win by 11 points. It's just there's not a set blueprint on how to beat this BYU team, and that's a testament to the way that they've constructed the roster where, again, it was the perfect blend of high-end potential NBA prospects, veteran guys that knew BYU and were ready to take a big step forward under Kevin Young, and then guys that were willing to just embrace their roles. And it's worked out outstanding for BYU to the point where now they feel like they can go toe-to-toe with anyone in college basketball, and it's pretty exciting to see.
I love that point on the roles, too, because with the depth being so deep, you'd imagine there might be a couple guys that want more playing time, and I'm sure that they do, but they're all about winning. And I love what Kevin Young said today about how this team, regardless of the role, they stay engaged.
I think it speaks to the character of the guys we have in our locker room and in our program. I think it also speaks to the relationships that our assistant coaches have with our players, keeping the guys in the boat, rowing in the same direction, always being there to just work with them and keep them focused on what they can do to continue to get better. And then, our guys just, they want to win, and I think when you're able to win, like we have, I think it's hard to not be invested because at the end of the day, I think every guy that's a high-level competitor wants to win.
And you're seeing that from this BYU team. All of these guys are really letting their individual accolades go out the door to, win games. Even Kevin Young today talked about the all Big 12 honors and how there could have been more guys that could have received accolades beyond just simply Richie Saunders and Yegor Demon. But, they've let that go, check it out at the door in an effort to win something big. And this BYU team, I think they can match up with nearly anyone in college basketball. Yeah, there's that, you wonder about how they would fare a second go-around against Houston, and they might have that opportunity coming up this week in Kansas City. But there's just a lot to like with this BYU team, and it's really fun to see because there was so much buzz and hype in the summertime to the likes of which we had never seen for a BYU basketball team, and they're living up to it. And there's a lot of buzz and momentum going into the postseason, and I think that's all you can ask for if you're in Cougar Nation.
I love that they are in the Big 12 this time around because you mentioned Houston. They might get a rematch with Iowa State Thursday morning. I like that there's been a variety of teams that they've played. I think that will prepare them well for the tournament. Houston is super physical. I think they're a Final Four team. They're so deep. They're so good. Iowa State's really physical as well, and BYU won that game. We'll have to see if there is a rematch, how that pans out. But they've had other games, like the Arizona game, where it's a shootout. And you just got to keep getting buckets, and they found ways to win that game. So I love the possibilities of this team in the NCAA tournament for a variety of factors. But one of those is what you noted, Mitch, where man, this team just wins in a variety of ways, and it's very different than last year's team. I think this is a season, BYU fans, where enjoy the expectations. I think last year there was a fair amount of trepidation when it came to the tournament, and that proved to be true for BYU fans because they got outed early. But this team feels different to me. I think you can buy into the hype, buy into the expectations, get on the train and enjoy the ride because this team is playing great basketball, and they're a lot of fun to watch.
That they are, and we're going to be talking with one of those guys that's part of this team that's having a lot of success right now, Yegor Demon, Big 12 all-freshman pick. He's going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour, so stay tuned for that. We'll also be taking your phone calls, 801-575-8255. Share your takes on this BYU basketball team, and maybe what should their mindset be going into Kansas City. They leave tomorrow for the Big 12 tournament. Weigh in on that. Cougar Nation sponsored by Central Bank, serving Utah County for over 133 years with trusted service, modern technology, and personalized care. Central Bank, proud sponsors of Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. We're taking the break. We'll get to more of what's trending up and trending down in the world of BYU basketball.
How many things affect your life as much as slow traffic and bad weather? Listen tomorrow morning for traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nines on KSL News Radio.
Cougar Nation is live here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte with you, and it's sponsored by Central Bank. Earlier today, Richie Saunders announced as a first-team All-Big 12 performer. He also received the Most Improved Player in the Big 12 Conference. Yegor Demon, who will be joining us in the next segment, so stay tuned for that. He was named to the All-Freshman team, and honorable mention. This was Kevin Young on Richie and Yegor earning their Big 12 awards.
Yeah, just want to congratulate Richie Saunders on being named first team All Big 12 as well as Most Improved Player. Yegor as honorable mention All League and first team freshman in the Big 12. Thought we had some other guys that were deserving, but happy for those guys. I mean, those are definitely team awards as well. Obviously, there's a lot goes into having individual success, and our guys are well aware of that. So happy for those two young men, to represent, our university in that those awards.
Do you feel like there was any snubs, Matt, on the Big 12 awards that were announced earlier today?
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe I don't know. Like Keita's been playing great, Keita of late, but is he honorable mention? I don't know if he's quite to that level. So I think Richie, first team, needed to be there. Most improved, a no-brainer. Yegor being there as well makes sense, and I think that's about right for this BYU team.
Let's dive into what's trending up and trending down for the Cougs on the hardwood.
Cougar Nation, trending. What's trending up and what's trending down this season?
Let's start with trending up, Mitch. For me, what is trending up is the Cougars' Sweet 16 possibilities. Drink that blue Kool-Aid, baby. Give it to me in gallons. I am drinking it all. This team, I came away so impressed with that win against Utah for some statistical reasons, which we already talked about. They've got the depth, they've got the versatility, they've got the shooting. What does this team not have? They went up against Utah. I think teams would point to BYU and say, well, you're a little undersized. They got out-rebounded by 19 against one of the tallest teams in the country, and they won by double digits. And most nights, they win the rebounding battle. They're 20-2 this year when they win the rebounding battle. So this team, more times than not, they win the rebounding battle, and when they don't, they've found a way to win a couple games. I'm buying in, Mitch. I feel like it was nice to see them get a 5 seed, a projection from ESPN on the seed line. I love the way this team is trending. I am drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm feeling like this team is going to the Sweet 16.
I love that Lenardi from ESPN did put BYU as a 5. We'll see if that's what it ends up being for BYU. A lot of other brackets have got the Cougars at 6 or 7 still.
7's ridiculous. They're the 17th team in the country.
But it's not based on –
It's the full body. Don't give me that crap. They're playing the Big 12. It's one of the hardest leagues.
I get that, but that non-conference schedule, if they had a little bit more substance in the non-conference, I don't even think we're debating what seed they'd be. They would be a lock to be a 5, in my opinion. I think that non-conference schedule and a lack of a good win in the non-conference hurts BYU a little bit because Also, I think what also hurts BYU a little bit is that they built up their resume in the Big 12 that's not the best league this year. It had a little bit more sizzle last year when it was the number 1 league in America by the metrics. This year it's the number 3 league. I still think it's a great league, but just trying to, I'm always a little cautious whenever it comes to seeds, but I think BYU definitely
5,
deserves.
6, 7, I don't care. Punch me into the Sweet 16, baby.
I think BYU can match up against anyone regardless of what pod they land in the NCAA tournament. I think what's trending up for me is BYU in rematches. They were 4-1 this season in the Big 12. Great job by the coaching staff, because that's when it becomes a case of the personnel, you guys know each other well. And I think I bring that up too because you're going to probably have some rematches, quite a few, in the tournament if you make a run in Kansas City, particularly on Thursday if it goes chalk and you play Iowa State, who you just barely played last week. BYU tends to be pretty good in these rematch spots, and I think that highlights the coaching staff and Kevin Young and his team when it comes to those second matchups against a rematch foe.
Trending down for me, and my younger self would hate me for saying this, but I don't give a rip about the Big 12 tournament this week. I do not care. I think there is nothing to gain, and I think there's a lot to lose in terms of injury. My younger self would hate me because I used to love to go down to Vegas for the Mountain West tournament. That was an annual tradition, and I loved going to that thing, and it felt meaningful, and it felt important, and I just don't care. I couldn't really pinpoint as to why. It just feels like at the end of the day, this team will be defined by success in March Madness, not by winning a Big 12 tournament championship. BYU has been to the tournament a lot, the NCAA tournament, and they haven't had a lot of success. That's what matters. Winning a Big 12 title but getting bounced in the first round, no one wants that. That would not validate a great season. So I don't care about this tournament this week. I want them to lose the opening round. I'll say it here and there. I want them to lose. And let's get ready for March Madness, baby.
I think it's fair, but I will say it has been 24 years since BYU has won a conference tournament.
Make it 25, man.
Why can't they go on a UConn-type run like UConn did years ago with Kemba Walker? Why not just win 11 straight, 15 straight games, go on an incredible run to close out the season? Why not? This BYU team is flying high. Go win that Big 12 tournament. Hey, for me, trending down, three-point shooting, a little bit, because last 2 games, 19 of 60 from 3. They started the Utah game 0 of 13. I would have never thought that.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm getting a little nitpicky because the impact of those threes were significant when they did hit those shots, but
they won both those games, though. Isn't that a positive? You're not shooting your best and you're winning games.
I agree, but I want to see BYU shooting their best in
we
the
can't
NCAA
have the
tournament.
Kansas win every game, Mitch.
Oh,
we
I
can't be blowing
understand
teams up
that,
by 30.
but I think that's got to be key when you're going into the NCAA tournament. You got to be able to knock down the 3. You can't go 0 of 13 in a neutral court and expect to win, because the teams you're going to face are a lot better than Utah, and you're not going to have the home crowd behind you in a neutral court setting, especially if you go to Wichita, Lexington, or Providence. They're not going to be behind you, so you better not start a game 0 of 13. So it's a little nitpicky, but I just think it's something to monitor for BYU, that they got to get that right, because to their core, and I know that's not, like last year was live and die by the 3. I know this team has much more nuance than that, but still, to their core, when they are on fire, when I point to that Arizona game a few weeks back, it's a thing of beauty to watch with this BYU team, and they really are one of the toughest teams to take down when they're knocking down their shots. So I just want to see BYU get back to really what I kind of expect them to be, because they're an excellent three-point shooting team. Do that in the postseason.
They shot it much better in the second half. They were over
did.
40% from 3 in the second half. You have to wonder if that 0 of 13, was there some senior night jitters? Obviously, that game meant a lot. You heard what Trey Stewart had to say after the game. So maybe they were just a little too amped up for that game against Utah at home. It was a raucous environment. I thought it was the best environment of the year at the Marriott Center. It was electric. So I think that 0 of 13 is more of an anomaly and not necessarily a sign of trouble to come.
News, traffic, and weather coming up next. And then on the other side, we will be joined live by BYU All Big 12 freshman guard Yegor Demon. Will discuss his Big 12 recognitions and preview the Big 12 tournament with Yegor coming up next here on Cougar Nation on KSL News Radio.
Be ready for BYU Game Day. Download the KSL News Radio app to stream BYU games, plus breaking news during the week. That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Welcome back into Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte with you live here in downtown Salt Lake City at Broadcast House. BYU basketball going to be tipping off the Big 12 tournament coming up on Thursday. The Cougars earned a double bye. They won't be playing until the quarterfinal round, where they will be waiting to face either Iowa State, Oklahoma State, or Cincinnati. Tip-off will be at 10:30 a.m. We'll get the extended pregame started at 9 a.m. here on KSL. But right now, we got to go out to the phone line and welcome in all Big 12 freshman guard, BYU freshman standout, Yegor Demin here on Cougar Nation on KSL News Radio. Yegor, thanks for joining us. Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte here talking with you. How you doing tonight?
I'm good, thank you.
Yegor, your thoughts on the Big 12 recognition that you received today, getting named all-freshman team and the honorable mention nod? How'd you find out about it, and just your thoughts on receiving that recognition?
I mean, this is very cool, and this is an honor for me to be named, any award in such a big and strong conference. We're playing good, and this is probably the most important for me, that we're winning, and hopefully we'll still win.
8-game winning streak now, Yegor, and you've played basketball at a lot of different levels worldwide. How much fun are you having playing with this BYU basketball team?
It's amazing. It's just really special team, and it's just so nice to play basketball with these guys. And I'm just talking about everybody, just coaches, players, the stuff around the team. It's amazing. I mean, it's experience that I'm going through right now. It's, you cannot really replace it with anything else, and I'm really happy to be where I'm at.
Talking with Yegor Demin here on KSL News Radio at Cougar Nation. BYU getting ready to start the Big 12 tournament. They're going to be leaving for Kansas City coming up tomorrow. And I'm curious, Yegor, with this team, it's amazing the depth that you guys have, yet everyone stays locked in. It doesn't matter, who's the star of the night. You guys are always dialed in. It seems like you guys are ready to, answer the call when called upon. What causes that from your viewpoint as a key piece to this team?
I think this is our biggest strength as a team, and the biggest strength of our coach, just to be able, to find somebody every night, and no matter how the defensive, how the opposite team is playing against us. We've been just talking about it between the team, and it just, the team decides to play against us one way. We find the way how to beat them with something else. They close the other option. We find something else. And this is why we are playing good basketball, because first of all, we have a good players, we have a good coaches, and we have good tactics that gives us opportunities for to find any option and respond for any defense of our opponents.
Igor, BYU is ranked 17th in the country now as of this morning, but you started conference play 1 of 3. Was there a moment during Big 12 play where you felt like things started to click and you were able to go on a big run like you did?
Exactly. After we realized that we are actually 1-3 in Big 12, we just talked between each other and we say, that's the moment where we decide what we do. Or we start winning, we start just becoming a better team and better players individually, finding the way how to win close games, right, in the last seconds games, or we just put the hands down and stop playing basketball. It's pretty funny, but that's basically how our conversation in the locker room went. So, and I think this was kind of the click, as you said, for our team. It was this moment.
You know, Yegor, a couple weeks ago after that West Virginia game, we talked to you in the media in that press conference room about how you maybe change your mindset a little bit in the Big 12. You know, a little bit more angry, a little more physical. What's that mindset going to look like going into the postseason where, you know, every game takes on a life of its own?
For sure, it goes more to focus, to more focus during the game from everybody in the team. And I think Coach was telling us about this, right? Since he was telling us he was participating in the postseasons, but obviously in a bigger environment, right? In a bigger league.
Yep.
And it's just different. It's just different for everybody, for coaches, for players, for your opponents. And obviously everything is much, much harder in the postseason, in the playoff type of games, where one mistake, one possession of the game can affect you to lose the game, which is obviously for everybody. It's the biggest task, and I would say the biggest assignment. I would call it like this, just to find a way how to stay focused during whole 40 minutes every game we have from now, and a lot of that is really I've really taken personally, because this is something I feel like I needed to do a better job with. So for me, it's a big challenge to really find myself for the most important games of the season.
You got a taste of a rivalry win, and it was a jam-packed Marriott Center, royal blue. Everyone was there early, super loud. What was your experience and your thoughts on playing in that rivalry game in front of the BYU fans?
Yeah, I mean, I already talked about this. It's just amazing. Obviously, it's a huge honor to be a part of such a historical rivalry and such a historical game, and so much better feeling is to play in the Marriott Center in this type of game. Really happy we won it, and yeah, we keep going.
Is this season playing out the way that you had hoped your BYU experience would look like, Yegor?
Absolutely.
What's been some of the highlights that to you over the course of this season that really have enhanced your BYU experience thus far?
I would call the highlights of the year. I don't want to mention anything individually. Obviously, there were pretty players. Pretty plays in the game, right?
Yeah.
Some sort of actions and things like that. But I think the biggest highlights of our team is big wins in Arizona and Iowa State, and obviously the game against Utah.
I got to ask you about a play, though, since you bring it up, Yegor. The behind-the-back dribble and then kick out to Mawut Mag, who buries the three. How rewarding was it to see him make that three and get you the assist?
I had no doubt, to be honest, that he's going to make it. I think you can see on the video that I was, while he's shooting, before the ball touched the net, I was already running back to the defense, and I was 100% sure that he's making the shot.
Yegor, last couple things here for you as here on KSL News Radio. We know that you've been viewed as a highly regarded NBA prospect. What do you your experience playing for Coach Kevin Young and how he's not only getting you guys as a team better, but also how do you feel like you've improved as a player in preparing for your pro aspirations down the road?
I think the main thing is that Coach is absolutely what I was looking for before choosing BYU, and this is the most important thing for me, because he is what I was expecting from him in case of what I'm learning from him and how much am I taking, how much knowledge I'm taking from him and from his experience. And just like little things that he's talking about, I'm really trying to be as a sponge and just absorb everything, every word, every everything that comes out of our coaching stuff, and obviously in the lead of KY. That was amazing. That was a beautiful season that is not end yet, obviously, and so much time to learn still. So I'm really happy that I choose this place, and I'm repeating this every day to myself and other people. So, yeah.
Wait, when you were growing up in Russia and also living in Spain with Real Madrid, did you watch, NCAA tournaments from afar and see these conference tournaments and all this, American college basketball tournaments and the excitement that comes with this at the NCAA level?
Obviously, I watched some highlights or maybe something in social media, but not as much of like really full games because of the time difference. I would be sleeping and getting ready for my morning practices while March Madness is going. So, I just would, follow something in social media and kind of something that goes out, right? And I'm really enjoying to watch these games right now. When I have free time, I'm watching other colleges playing, and that's a beautiful basketball.
What have your teammates told you about conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament, which is right around the corner? Have they prepped you for what it's like?
Yeah, obviously I'm trying to get ready for it, right, and prepare myself mentally and physically for it because everybody keeps saying around me that it's just not something that you can imagine if you've never been there. And this is why it put me in even more, excitement state when I'm like, okay, this is so interesting for me, and I'm just so excited, and I need it. That's I think what we need to catch this feeling with all our team, and I think this is what's gonna lead us far.
Well, Yegor, we appreciate the time. We appreciate. I'm sure you've put Cougar Nation in a lot of excitement state this entire season. Best of luck in Kansas City and the NCAA tournament. We'll see you down the road, and looking forward to your success going forward.
Thank you so much.
That's Yegor Demmin here on KSL News Radio. Great stuff from Yegor as he and this BYU basketball team get ready to travel to Kansas City tomorrow, and then their first game is coming up on Thursday in the quarterfinals. We're taking a break. Cougar Nation sponsored by Central Bank, serving Utah County for over 133 years with trusted service, modern technology, and personalized care.
Cougar fans, use this radio station tomorrow morning for important news updates. Listen to Utah's most important radio station tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
And you can use this station to chime in about BYU basketball. That's what Cougar Nation is all about, getting the pulse of the fan base. And here's the number, 801-575-8255. Last chance of this show, the regular season finale, to answer this question. What do you think BYU's mindset should be for the upcoming Big 12 tournament? We'll get to your calls, and Mitch will get to you. Of course, Cougar Nation is sponsored by Central Bank. Mitch Harper, the BYU insider, the czar of Provo athletics. That was a bad nickname. Sorry, Mitch. I shouldn't have used that. But what do you think their mindset should be?
Win at least one game, because then that helps the chance of getting a 5 seed, assuming it's Iowa State, and I think it will be. Win at least one game. That's what I want to see, and we'll go to Kevin Young, too, on what he thinks the mindset's going to be for his team heading into Kansas City.
I always preface cliches by saying, I know this is cliche, but it really has been our mantra, taking things game by game and day by day. So that approach for me is not going to change. We'll see who our opponent is in game one, and we'll prepare for that game just like we did every other game throughout this year. I think that's what I learned a lot with this group. They have done well with keeping like a singular focus and not trying to look, past anything. So that's how we're going to approach this.
I want to see at least one win, Matt. Kevin Young's taking it day by day, stacking those days. What about you? What do you want to see the mindset be going into Kansas City?
I think the mindset should be to forfeit the game.
What? Forfeit?
Here's the problem, Mitch.
Okay,
If you
lay it
win
on
that,
me.
if you win that game, you're probably rematching against Houston. Then you would have had back-to-back games against some of the most physical teams in college basketball. And what kind of toll does that take? We saw in the Utah game, which was shockingly physical, Trey Stewart got banged up for a minute. Richie Saunders landed on someone's foot on a jump shot. Like, all it takes is one injury in this game to change your opportunities and your possibilities in the NCAA tournament. There's nothing to value. There's nothing to gain. Even if you do win that first game, there's no guarantee you're getting the 5 seed. And if you lose that game, there's no guarantee you're not getting the 5 seed. There's not enough data to point to when it comes to conference tournaments that if you do A, B, C, and D, that it results in a specific reward. We saw last year that Iowa State won the Big 12 tournament in dominating fashion, and they barely snuck into the 2 line. It just doesn't matter. This tournament, the committee has shown in recent years, we don't really give a rip about the outcome of the tournaments. Rocco Miller, a bracketologist who was on Cougar Sports Saturday last Saturday, said that by Friday they mostly have the bracket done.
Yeah.
So why play the game? Look, they're not going to forfeit. It was funny. I was being tongue in cheek, but really, I would play everyone 17 to 18 minutes. I would do some crazy stuff. Maybe you jack up 53s to see if you can get out of the slump. Like, I just don't think that you need to put all this energy and focus into winning this thing when at the end of the day, what really matters is next week.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. And I will say, though, I just feel like BYU matches up really well against Iowa State. And I just feel that
they got some injury issues, too, don't they?
Yes, and I think there's naturally that those two lining up against each other, BYU, matches up well. The 3 matchups BYU has had against Iowa State since joining the Big 12 last year against TJ Otzelberger's Iowa State program, BYU blew out the Cyclones in Provo. They were up 11 in Ames last before losing, and then they get a win last week in Hilton Coliseum in double overtime. I just think that BYU will get by Iowa State if they do. It'll be tough because Iowa State probably brings the most fans because it's an actual, travel. It's a actual thing in the winter.
You made this mistake for the Big 12 championship game, and I went, and the Iowa State fans did not show up in droves like you thought they would, Mitch.
You will be surprised. I saw it firsthand in Kansas City last year. They took over that building. It was not Kansas.
But they were the 2 seed last year.
Right, and this
They're the 5.
Look, if you're in Ames, Iowa, and look, I've never been to Ames, Iowa, but I'm assuming it's not like you're looking for vacations. You're looking for something to do, right?
Are you trying to accuse Ames of not being big enough to get a Taylor Swift coming through town?
Well, I'm just saying that you probably want something to do. And these are people that are basketball junkies, and yes. I would expect they're going to show up. Yes, the football matchup, they were no-shows. I think there was more BYU fans at that game than Iowa State. But they show up for that basketball tournament, and they probably will be there for that quarterfinals because they probably assumed they were going to be in the top 4. So at a minimum, they were going to be there for that quarterfinal round on. So I would expect it's going to be BYU and Iowa State. I do think that BYU gets a matchup with Houston in the semis before falling to the Cougs in red. And then I think Houston wins the Big 12. I will say this, though. I think there's going to be some chaos on the other side of the Big 12 tournament. I've got K-State playing Kansas in the semifinals, and then I've got Kansas playing Houston in the championship. So I got a little bit of a crazy, wild outcome in my predictions. You can see the full list on KSLSports.com.
If I could predict a perfect way for this to go, it would be the BYU-Iowa State rematch to be physical, to prep BYU, to come down to the wire, and then Iowa State wins on, the last possession. And no one looks at that loss as a bad loss. You play hard, it's down to the wire, and it doesn't go your way, and you get out of there injury-free, and you get ready for March Madness.
BYU and in the Big 12 tournament. We don't know the opponent yet, but we will have coverage on Thursday. We will fire things up live at 9 a.m. with extended pregame here on KSL News Radio, and the Cougs will begin their quest for a conference tournament title in Kansas City, second year they're in the Big 12 tournament. So we will talk to you on Thursday. We'll have full coverage on KSLSports.com. Talk to you next time here on KSL News Radio.